She was 9 years old, and she woke up on the 4th of July thinking it was going to be a good day. Fireworks. A parade. Her mom. That was the last morning anyone outside that family knew where she was. For 6 years, a little girl from a quiet Chicago suburb simply ceased to exist in the public record. No school enrollment, no doctor's appointments, no digital footprint, no birthday photos on social media. Nothing. And somewhere in those 6 years, that 9-year-old became a 15-year-old who had only ever known one version of her life, told only by one person, in a story that was not entirely true. Her name is Kayla Unbehaun, and this is a story about what love looks like when it becomes a cage. Before we dive in, drop a comment and let us know where you're watching from. We'd love to hear from you. And if you enjoy true crime stories like this, make sure to like the video, subscribe, turn on the notification bell, and share it with someone who'd love it too. South Elgin, Illinois is the kind of town that doesn't announce itself. It sits about 30 miles west of Chicago, past the noise, past the skyline, past all the things people point to when they want to explain what Illinois is. South Elgin is just neighborhoods, soccer leagues, 4th of July parades, the kind of place where kids ride bikes until the streetlights come on, and parents feel reasonably sure that nothing terrible will happen. Ryan Iserka lived there with his wife Lisa and their blended family. Lisa had 2 daughters from a previous relationship, and Ryan had Kayla, his daughter, his kid, the one he had fought hard to have in his life at all. Ryan and Heather Unbehaun had met back in 2003. They were both students at the Art Institute of Atlanta in Georgia, creative, young, building something. They dated for years. And when Kayla arrived in January 2008, Ryan said they had always planned to get married. Always meant to make it official. But something happened in those first 2 weeks after Kayla's birth. Something shifted. Just 2 weeks after Kayla was born, Heather suddenly ended the relationship. No dramatic falling out that made headlines. No single definable moment. Just a door closed. Ryan would spend the next several years trying to find his way back through it. Not back to Heather. Back to his daughter. At first, the co-parenting arrangement was informal. Loose agreements, weekend visits, the kind of thing that works when both people are choosing to make it work. And for a while it did. But then, without telling Ryan, Heather moved. Things became complicated when she and Kayla moved to Athens, Georgia, without telling him. During this time, he could only see Kayla on video calls and when she and Heather came back to town for the holidays. Think about that for a moment. Your daughter is growing up. Her teeth are coming in. She's learning to read. And you're watching it happen through a phone screen, pixelated, buffering, for states away. Ryan went to court. He asked for formal visitation rights. He asked for child support to be established. A judge put an agreement on the record. And then, Heather didn't follow it. She had repeatedly not followed what it said. According to Ryan, this happened again and again. Court orders. Agreements. Promises made in front of judges that were then quietly broken once the courtroom doors closed. But the pattern that worried the courts most wasn't just the custody violations. It was something more specific. Something quieter and harder to prove, and yet somehow more telling about what was really happening. At one point, Heather told the court that Ryan could not see Kayla because the child had rare health problems. Serious ones, she implied. The kind that required careful management and a mother's constant presence. A court investigator looked into it. The court investigator determined that Heather's claims were false. It was also alleged that she was against vaccinations for Kayla and did not allow her to use normal toothpaste. These are small details. But small details, accumulated over time, tell a story. What the court was slowly piecing together was an image of a mother who, whether out of fear or love, or something more complicated than either, had built a life for herself and her daughter in which Ryan barely existed, and who was willing to use Kayla's health as a tool to keep it that way. In 2016, a judge granted Ryan Iserka the sole discretion to make all decisions regarding medical treatment and care for the minor child. The judge determined that Heather Unbehaun had been messing with the medical and health issues of Kayla. Then, in early 2017, primary custody was transferred. Ryan was now Kayla's custodial parent. He lived in South Elgin. Heather, who had moved back to Illinois, was given visitation rights every other weekend. Unsupervised. A window, not a door. For a few months, everything seemed fine. And maybe it was. Maybe those weekends were genuinely good. Maybe Kayla looked forward to them. Maybe Heather had accepted the new arrangement and was finding her footing. Courts don't always see everything, and legal documents don't capture the texture of real life. The way a child laughs around her mother, the way a parent tucks her in, the small private world that exists between a woman and her daughter that no judge can fully evaluate from behind a bench. But then came the 4th of July. Ryan dropped Kayla off at Heather's house in Wheaton, Illinois, a different suburb, about 20 minutes away. It was a holiday weekend. Kayla was going to spend the 4th with her mom, watch the parade, do the things kids do on the 4th of July. She was supposed to be back on July 5th for a court-ordered exchange. On the morning of July 4th, Kayla and Heather went to the Wheaton parade together. They then packed up their car and left, telling relatives, but not Ryan. They were going on an overnight camping trip in Wisconsin. They were expected to return for the meetup with Iserka. Here is where everything starts to bend. Heather told her own family, not Ryan. She framed it as spontaneous. A camping trip. Wisconsin. Overnight. She'd be back. On July 5th, Ryan sent Heather a text message. He was going to be 15 or 20 minutes late to the pickup. Just a heads up, a courtesy text, the kind people send when they're stuck in traffic and don't want anyone to worry. The message was never read. At 7 p.m., Ryan arrived at Heather's house. They were not home. Heather's father and uncle were there and told Ryan about the camping trip. He called Kayla's phone. He called Heather's phone. Nothing. No answer from either. He tried again. And again. Then he called the police. What the police found when they started asking questions was not the portrait of a spontaneous weekend trip. Investigators learned that Kayla Unbehaun was last seen packing her belongings up to the roof of her car. You don't pack a car roof for an overnight camping trip. You pack a car roof when you're leaving. Investigators discovered that Heather had sold her car, deleted her social media accounts, and turned off her cell phone. The social media was gone. The phone was off. The car, her actual registered vehicle, had been sold. And on July 7th, Heather missed a court date. She didn't call. She didn't file anything. She simply didn't show up. On July 28th, a felony warrant for kidnapping was issued for her. The warrant went out. The case entered the missing persons system. Kayla's photo was distributed. A 9-year-old with light hair and blue eyes. The kind of face that stares back at you from a flyer and makes your chest tighten a little. And then, silence. The silence in a case like this is its own kind of horror. It's different from the silence in a stranger abduction case, where there are almost too many unknowns. Who? Why? Where? What happened in those first terrible hours? In a parental abduction case, you know who. You know the relationship. You know there's a child out there who is probably, in most physical senses, okay. Federal sheltered. Not hurt in the ways you fear most when you hear the word abduction. But you don't know where. And you don't know what she's being told. Ryan Iserka started a Facebook page called Bring Kayla Home. He did interviews. He made videos. He appeared on camera and said the kinds of things fathers say when they're trying to reach a daughter they can no longer reach. That he loves her. That he isn't angry. That he just wants to see her again. Ryan wanted Kayla to know that he and his family love her and want to see her again. He does not want to take Heather away from her. He just wants her to be happy and be around everyone who loves her. Those are careful words. Measured. Chosen specifically for a child who might see them. Who might one day search her own name and find a father saying, softly, come home. I'm not the enemy. Leads trickled in over the years. People thought they saw them in Georgia. Heather had ties to Athens, where she and Kayla had lived before. Investigators tracked those tips. Nothing. Then in 2019, something happened that gave Ryan's already fractured hope another crack. A young boy appeared in a news story claiming to be Timothy Pitson, another Illinois child who had gone missing years earlier. The story turned out to be a hoax. And Ryan Iserka, watching from the outside, said publicly that it took some of his hope away. Not because of what happened to someone else's case, but because it illustrated, viscerally, how these searches work, how they create cycles of hope and devastation that never fully resolve, that just keep cycling. Meanwhile, Kayla was turning 10, 11, 12, 13. She was becoming someone new, somewhere the law could not reach her. Investigators later came to believe that Heather and Kayla had been in Oregon most of the time and believe they only moved to North Carolina before she was found. Oregon, the other side of the country, a state Heather had no known ties to, which may have been exactly the point. Off the grid, under a different kind of quiet. Think about what Heather had to do to sustain this for 6 years. No registered vehicle in her name. No school enrollment that connected to her real identity. No medical records under the right name. No social media. No credit cards that could be traced. For 6 years, she and a child maintained a kind of invisibility that Asheville Police Lieutenant Jonathan Brown would later describe as unusual. What's most unusual is the ability to stay off the grid, if you will, for that period of time. And all the while, Heather maintained her own narrative. She created a Facebook page, not to help find Kayla, but to build an argument. Justice for Heather and Kayla Unbehaun, the page was called. In posts over the years, she wrote that Ryan had been emotionally abusive, that the Kane County court system was corrupt, that the judge had illegally given her daughter to an abusive father, that she had fled to protect Kayla, not to punish Ryan. In an April 4th post, she wrote that a Kane County family court judge illegally gave her daughter's father full custody. To protect her, she fled with her. She was arrested in 2023. The Kane County court corruption continues and is keeping us apart. She was still writing, still posting, still, in her own framing, the protector, not the abductor. This is where the story becomes genuinely uncomfortable to sit with. Because the law is clear. The courts were clear. Heather had no custody. She violated a court order. She took a child. That is, in every legal sense, kidnapping. But what was Kayla's experience of it? What did she understand, growing up? What name was she going by? What story had she been given about her father, her home, her life before? We don't know. And that not knowing is part of what makes this case so hard to shake. In November 2022, nearly 5.5 years after Kayla disappeared, her case appeared on Netflix. Unsolved Mysteries had been revived a few years earlier, a modern reboot of the long-running show that had, historically, actually solved cases. Volume 3, Episode 9. The episode was titled Abducted by a Parent. Ryan appeared on camera. He talked about Kayla. Photos of Kayla, as a 9-year-old and as an age-progressed 15-year-old, appeared on screen. Millions of people watched. Most of them watched and moved on, as we all do with true crime, as we absorb one story and are already carrying it into the next one. Most people saw it and felt something and forgot. But one person didn't forget. May 13th, 2023 was a Saturday, Mother's Day weekend. A woman was shopping at a Plato's Closet, a used clothing consignment store at the Westgate Regional Shopping Center in Asheville, North Carolina. She was browsing racks, minding her own life. And then she saw someone who looked familiar. The woman recognized Kayla from the missing poster. A store employee called the authorities. The employee had recognized not just Kayla, but Heather, a mother and teenage daughter, shopping at a secondhand store on a Saturday afternoon in a mountain city, 600 miles from where Kayla had last been seen. Heather Unbehaun was taken into custody by Asheville police officers just before 7:30 p.m. on May 13th. Kayla, now 15, was placed into the care of the North Carolina Division of Social Services while her identity was confirmed and while Illinois authorities were contacted. The next morning, Sunday, Ryan Iserka got in his car and drove to North Carolina. Think about that drive. What do you think about for that many hours on the highway? What do you rehearse? What do you stop rehearsing because you know no rehearsal is adequate? He arrived. He found his daughter. Iserka connected with his daughter in North Carolina on Sunday, and they drove back to Illinois together. Father and daughter on an interstate highway. The same state, finally. The same car. What 6 years looks like, closing in a single car ride home. Ryan's statement, released through the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, was short and careful. I'm overjoyed that Kayla is home safe. We ask for privacy as we get to know each other again and navigate this new beginning. Get to know each other again. She was 9 when she left. She was 15 when she came back. 6 years of childhood, her entire adolescence up to that point, had happened somewhere else, under a different shape of life. And now she was back in Illinois with a father she likely remembered as a distant figure, a stepmother, stepsisters, a bedroom that probably had to be built from scratch. There is no roadmap for what Kayla faced. There is no guide for who she was supposed to be in that house, in that life, in that state. And there is no way to fully understand what she felt, what she still feels, about her mother. Meanwhile, Heather had initially been released on bond in North Carolina. She then turned herself in to Illinois authorities, a move that prompted Ryan's attorney to note that it was, quote, Very concerning that Heather was released on bond in North Carolina after she was a fugitive for 6 years. Heather was held at the Kane County Adult Justice Center. She was released on bond with an electronic monitoring device. She was ordered not to come within 1,000 feet of Ryan's home. She was not permitted to leave Illinois without court permission. She had survived off the grid for 6 years. Now she wore a GPS device on her ankle. The legal process moved slowly, as it always does, as if the courts themselves need time to believe what happened. For nearly 2 years after Kayla was found, Heather maintained her position. She had supporters. The Facebook page kept its followers. In her telling, she had done what any loving mother would do when the system failed her child. She had chosen Kayla over the law. Then in August 2025, on the day her jury trial was finally set to begin, on the morning that potential jurors were sitting in a waiting room, ready to be questioned, Heather Unbehaun walked into an Illinois courtroom and changed her plea. Heather Unbehaun's unexpected admission in an Illinois courtroom came as a jury was about to be selected in her child abduction trial. Kayla had been missing 6 years when she was recognized in a thrift store in North Carolina. The judge had ruled in the days before that Heather could not argue the 2017 custody orders were invalid or unconstitutional. She could not put the court system on trial. She could not make her defense the idea that she was right. She had lost that argument. And so she pleaded guilty. Heather Unbehaun, who was originally facing up to 3 years in prison, was given 2 years of probation and ordered to wear a GPS monitor for 6 months beyond that by Kane County Judge David Clement. Clement also ordered that she is to have no contact with Kayla, no prison time, no contact with her daughter, probation, an ankle monitor. Whether that feels like justice depends on which story you believe. And the fact that 2 very different stories about this case exist, told by people who both, in their own way, say they were fighting for Kayla, is something that will not be resolved by a sentencing hearing. After news of the guilty plea broke, Ryan Iserka and his wife Lisa told the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children that Kayla, now 17, is doing extremely well. She's thriving, making lots of friends, and soaking up every moment of her senior year of high school. She's living the life of a normal, happy teenager. Senior year of high school. That's where Kayla is now. 17. Applying to colleges maybe. Figuring out who she is. Making friends who have no idea where she's been or what her last 6 years looked like. Just a teenager in a school in Illinois doing what teenagers do. There is something remarkable about that. And something quietly devastating about it at the same time. Because there are questions this story doesn't answer. And they're not small ones. What does Kayla remember? What did those 6 years feel like from inside them? Not as an abduction, but as a life. Oregon, wherever they lived. The routines they built. The things she loved and the things she learned and the person she was becoming before all of it was interrupted, again, by a parking lot in North Carolina. What does she think about her mother? The court has ordered no contact. But no court can order what a person thinks in the quiet moments before sleep. No judge can rule on grief. And there's a question that sits at the very center of this case. The one that makes it so much harder than a straightforward abduction story. The question of what Kayla was told. What she believed. Who she thought her father was during those 6 years. Whether she was searching for him, or whether she had been given a story in which there was nothing to search for. We don't know. What we know is this. A woman at a Plato's Closet in Asheville, North Carolina, paused on a Saturday evening and recognized a face from a television screen. She told someone. That someone called the police. And because of that single act of paying attention, a 15-year-old girl got in a car with her father on a Sunday morning and drove back to a life that had been waiting for her. Ryan and Lisa want to send a message to other families of missing children who are still searching. No matter how much time has passed, your loved one can still be found. And if they were taken from you, know that justice can still be served against the person who took them. Never give up hope. 6 years. Off the grid. Unknown. Unfound. And then, a thrift store. A Netflix episode. A stranger who looked twice. The strangest part of this story is not the disappearance. It's the return. It's the fact that Kayla came back. That she's in her senior year of high school right now, somewhere in Illinois, and she's okay. She's more than okay. But she still has a mother she cannot legally speak to. A childhood she experienced in 2 completely separate fragments. A father she is still, in some sense, getting to know again. and a story about herself that she'll be trying to reconcile long after the court documents are filed and the news cycle moves on. That's where Kayla lives now. Not in the missing poster, not in the Netflix episode, but in the ordinary, complicated, ongoing work of being a person whose past does not have clean edges. And maybe that's the most honest thing you can say about any of this. She was found. She's home. She's okay. And some part of her is still, in ways that no one outside that family can fully understand, figuring out what those words even mean. If this story stayed with you, if you're thinking about what it means to be found, or what 6 years in the dark costs a child, drop your thoughts in the comments. This community sees things that matter, and I'd love to hear what you noticed that I didn't say. If you're new here, hit subscribe and turn on notifications. And share this with someone who needs to hear it. Sometimes a story reaches the right person at exactly the right moment. That's literally how Kayla came home. Take care of yourselves. I'll see you in the next one.